My name is Victor Arnez. If I made the statement that we're living in dangerous times, I doubt if anyone would disagree with me. But they might think that I'm prompted to say this statement or make this statement because of what's happening around the world. But let me complete the statement. These are dangerous times or perilous times for black men in America. I'm in New York City, and what's happening here is something that people are very familiar with. They're familiar with police brutality. They're familiar with black-on-black crime. But the question that we want to address today is when we have to look to people like the police or other authorities to protect us, when we have to look to them and then be abused by them and have fear of them, is there any recourse? Is there anywhere to turn? Is there any protocol that we are supposed to follow? We're going to discuss that and a couple of other things. I have a guest with me today, Earl Gardner, who has a very, very interesting story of something that happened to him in Atlantic City a couple of years ago. Let me introduce my guest today, Earl Gardner. How are you doing?
I'm still in one piece. I'm doing very well.
Great. I want you to tell us about this incident that has taken place. And the thing that I found very interesting was that you understand or recognize that in any department, any police force, army, or whatever, there are things that could take place that might seem to be abusive, but with the proper investigation, you might find out that maybe it was or it wasn't. But at least there's some place to go to have an investigation to take place so people could find out what actually happened. We find out that that's not true in all cases. Tell us a little bit about what happened to you. How many years ago was that, first of all?
It's coming up on now 1992, coming up on 12 years now.
12 years ago.
Since I was attacked by the police. It was shortly after the Rodney King situation where they physically beat him and left marks on him that were indicative of the beating. So the cops changed their tactics or went to a tactic that they had been using before in the past. And this tactic where they're able to abuse and torture you and it doesn't leave any marks on your body.
And this is what happened to you?
This is what happened to me. They physically crushed me by piling up 5 or 6 grown men on my body after I was handcuffed behind my back, making it physically impossible for me to aspirate my lungs and open them up and breathe because they were lying on my top of my chest.
Why don't we start from the beginning? Tell us why were you in Atlantic City? How did everything happen?
I went to Atlantic City with a teammate of mine from high school. We had graduated by then. I was 21, named James Ferrazzo. He was a Marine recruit, and the recruiting office of the Marines was going on a trip to Atlantic City, and they asked me to go. We went to Atlantic City. My friends were both under 21, and they were unsure as to whether or not they'd be allowed in the casino. So we had some drinks before we left for Atlantic City, and once we got on the bus, they allowed us to have some more drinks. We had some drinks going down. This was a nighttime event.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 21.
Okay.
And but I wasn't really a gambler. I was going to, like I say, mainly to hang out in the casino and get some more free drinks. I had been there before, and there was never a problem. But I knew I didn't have any ID. I didn't have any good ID. I'm from Alabama. My license was lost, and all I had was a photocopy of it and my Social Security card. And so I was preparing for trouble on the way, just in case, because it wasn't sufficient. It wasn't good enough. I knew that. And we went to Atlantic City. The bus arrived. Went in the bus lobby. Went across, up over to the casino to cash in my voucher for the quarters. And before I could reach the cashier, 2 security guards approached me and asked me for ID. And I didn't think anything of it.
Now, is this usual when you walk into the casino? You said you've been there before.
Sure.
Would guards approach you and ask for ID?
Strangely enough, it never happened before. I've been in casinos since I was 14 years old with my grandmother and great aunts. I always looked older. I had been being served in bars since I was 15. It never was a problem. But they had a commercial on TV in New York that said if you were caught in the casinos gambling and you were under 21, you could be arrested. So I was more concerned with the gambling aspect of it. And when they looked at my ID, they looked at the photocopy, they quite frankly said, this is not good enough, you'll have to leave, which didn't really cause any problems because I had prepared for that. And so I said, okay.
Where were your 2 friends at this time?
They were somewhere between the bus lobby. They weren't with me directly.
Okay.
People were filing out of the bus, getting their vouchers, heading toward the casino.
Okay.
We weren't walking in together, but there was a line somewhere ahead, somewhere behind. But once I was talking to the security guards, everything went on by me. I didn't see anyone else that I was on this trip with after these guards stopped me. And they were dressed in slacks and blazers. It wasn't a problem. So I knew if I was getting kicked out, they were going to catch these other two. So when they told me, I turned to the left and I walked away from the casino off to one of the corridors toward the lobby to leave. And upon that time, when I was walking to the doors to get out, the doors opened up. They were smoky glass doors. They opened up, and 6 cops from the Atlantic City Police Department came in. It was 1 cop, and there were 2 cops behind him, and 3 cops behind those 2 cops. Came in like a phalanx. They weren't rushing. They just came in and I didn't think anything of it. And I was on my way out, and someone yelled, "That's him." And I was still walking out, and I looked around to see, where was, "That's him." I looked around, and I didn't see anything going on. When I turned back around, the cops were right in front of me.
Oh, you were "That's him."
That's him. And I had noticed that the security guards were up the corridor a ways, where they had followed me and made sure that I was leaving. And all of this was like, the cop said to me, "Do you have any ID?" And I said, "No, but I can prove who I am." Usually I give them my social security number, and my name is Allah Shame Earl Gardner. It's so unique with my address, and that's usually sufficient. I mean, I traveled all over the country driving in my car and just told the cop that, and they ran it, and that's been enough. But apparently the cop said, he was standing in front of me, just one cop, he said, "Come with us." And I asked him, "Come with you where?" And they didn't say anything, and he motioned and grabbed my elbow like he was going to take me somewhere, and he said, "Come with us," and he moved, and I didn't move, and he just went on without me about a step, and then he turned around back and came to me, and he grabbed my left wrist, and he put a handcuff on it and pulled it behind me, and he pulled my right wrist behind me, and he handcuffed that one. And I was standing in the middle of the lobby. Next thing you know, I was handcuffed behind my back. And I'm asking the cops, "What's this about? What have I done?" And no one said anything after that point for quite a while. The cops got alongside of me to escort me out, and I fell to the floor.
Okay, before we get to that point, you said someone screamed, "There he is." Do you know if it was the guards? Was it someone just, do you have any idea?
I didn't see him when they said it, but it was a male voice, and it sounded like the guards. When I turned around, it was the 2 guards. The guards are the ones, I swore to that in the court of law.
It's a possibility. So far as when the policemen were coming in, you said, did they look like they were coming in responding to a call?
No,
or
they didn't. No, they didn't. It was like they were coming in. There was so many of them. They weren't rushing. They were just walking into the casino.
So what caused them to actually come over to you was when someone yelled out, "That's him"?
At that point in time, that's what I thought. But as later found out, I know a lot about the case because I'm the person that investigated the case and served subpoenas and got information that I would have had no way of knowing about. And I'm also the victim, so I know things that even if I was a lawyer on the case, he wouldn't really know anything about it because he wouldn't have been there.
Okay.
So I was physically there when these things happened. And at that point in time, I didn't really know the full scope of that this was already a concerted effort. I mean, this was going on before the security guards even stopped me for ID. All of this was already going on.
I see. Okay. Now you said they handcuffed you, you dropped to the floor.
I slumped to the floor because I had no idea where they were going. This is right after they beat Rodney King. They just beat Rodney King in '91. I don't know where these cops are taking me. Nobody knows where I am. And I am 21. No one's telling me what this is about or why they're here. I'm asking all these questions. Just, what are you doing? What have I done? Where are you taking me? Am I under arrest? Read me my rights. And that's it. And I was just going on and on. And they weren't saying anything. They didn't do anything. Moments passed. I was about 3 inches off the ground. And then the cops lined up alongside of me, 3 on each side, and they picked me up. And I was about 6 inches off the ground the whole way. All I could see was the black marble floor. And I saw a door jam, and it looked like we were outside. But I couldn't tell if we went outside or I couldn't tell where we were going because I only could see the floor. And next thing I knew, I was flipped over onto my back, onto a bed in a little small room.
In this little small, okay.
I had no idea where I was at that point in time. I just knew I was on a bed, and then I saw like the cops were right on top of me, but behind them it was white. And they were piling on top of me on the bed while I was handcuffed behind my back. And it was just more and more weight and pressure, and I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't talk, and the weight was just so much, and I was saying, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And as I was saying, "I can't breathe," I thought it was a pillow at the time, but it wound up being a towel. It came out of apparently nowhere, and it just suffocated my whole face. And my tongue was caught in my teeth at that point in time when I was saying I can't breathe. And they made me bite off my tongue, but they were applying so much pressure to suffocate me. I believe I was dead, but I definitely lost consciousness. And the next thing I know, it was about a half an hour later, and it was like lightning hit my body.
Okay.
And it was a jerk. And when I jerked, my hands and my arms were strapped down to a bed, and they couldn't move. And
Okay, just a moment.
Sir?
Now, I just want to go back a little bit. Did anyone at that time say that you were arrested?
No.
Did anyone at the time say that you could make a phone call or anything? Did
No.
Try to explain anything to you? I just
No.
want to get that clear. Now, another thing I would like to explain is that we have to remember that this took place how many years ago? You said 12 years ago?
Happened in 1992.
1992. A lot of people might think that that's normal behavior since Bush is in office. You know, that's like run-of-the-mill stuff right now. But this was back before Bush was in office, so this really sticks out as something that's unusual. Okay, continue. After you said you woke up and you were tied to a bed?
It wasn't a wake up. It wasn't like you were groggy and I had drank a lot prior to this whole thing happening, but I was right on top of. You sober up when you realize you don't know what's going on, and I'm in this hallway. All I can see is doors and numbers. I don't know where I am. I could be in the basement of somewhere. I don't know whether I'm still in a hotel or a police station. I have no idea where I am. I have no idea how I got there. I'm just strapped to this bed. My clothes are torn and blood-stained. I'm missing the arm of my sleeve, and I was handcuffed. I have my sleeves. And I see a clock on the wall. It's an analog clock with the hands. So it's around 12:30. And that whole thing happened around 12:05, so it was like a half an hour distance. I was out. I don't remember anything from that whole half an hour because I believed that I was dead and the hospital revived me. I was definitely unconscious. And when I came to strapped to this bed in this hallway, soon after that, it was right where two hallways intersect. And I really couldn't see down the hallways on either side of me. So it was like three doorways around me. All of a sudden, two cops came and they stood in this doorway. And then two cops came and they stood in that doorway. And another two cops came and they stood in the doorway behind me. So there was 6 cops all around me in the doorways. So this is how I know it was 6 cops, because 3 times 2 is 6. And then one of the cops said to me, "Are you going to be nice and give the nurse some blood?"
Just a moment. You said that if originally they put you in a room, it was a small room.
I thought it was a room, but it wound up that it was an ambulance.
Okay.
I didn't know it was an ambulance until after I subpoenaed and got the ambulance.
Right, because they were
I was only on the ground. I didn't even know.
So the bed that you were in probably was a portable bed or something?
Yeah, the first one, yes.
Okay.
And the second one was a hospital stretcher. It was wider with the rails on the side, and it had the leather straps already on it.
But were you in the hospital? At this point you don't know that.
I didn't know it was in the hospital. There's
Okay.
a hallway with doors and numbers, and they were plain doors and numbers. It wasn't like medical equipment in the hallway.
Okay.
It was just a hallway, and it's just one bed, and there was a clock, and there wasn't any markings that let me know it was a hospital.
Okay.
Nor was I sick, so I didn't know why I would even be in the hospital.
Okay.
So the cops also have these tactics where they ask you 2 different questions at the same time, or they give you 2 different commands at the same time. So this way you're never in compliance. Like they'll say, "Freeze, put your hands up." Well, do you want me to freeze or put my hands up? One or the other. Or they'll grab your bag and they'll say, "Do you mind? Can I search your bag?" Well, that's yes, I mind. No, you can't search my bag. So you'll just say yes or no, and they'll do it. So when the cop said to me, "Are you going to be nice?" That's one question. "And give the nurse some blood," that's the second question. I had to make a definitive, declarative statement. No, I'm not going to give the nurse any blood. If you take blood from me, it'll be against my will. It's just like yes or no. Because maybe, I don't know if they're recording this or this is, I don't have any idea. So soon after I said that, the cops just lined up on either side of the bed, 3 on either side. And there was a phlebotomist. I thought it was a nurse. She looked like a nurse, but like it was a phlebotomist. It's the same person. She just takes the blood. That's her specific task. They lined up on the side of the bed. They jumped on top of me on the bed. Then I was stuck with a needle. I didn't know whether they were putting drugs into me or taking blood out. And then I was suffocated again while I was already strapped to this bed, and these grown men were lying across my body. At that time, it was 12:40 a.m. I didn't even know whether it was a.m. or p.m. It just was an analog clock with the hands on it. But I saw this clock. They were trying to kill me. I remember that this was 12:30, 12:40 a.m. And everyone left, and I didn't see anyone else after that till about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was yelling and screaming, yelling. Nobody came to tell me where I was at or how I got there or what was going on.
At this point, you're not in the hallway any longer.
I was still in the hallway. Stayed in the hallway the whole time, yelling and screaming. Nobody didn't see anybody after they all left. Nobody came and told me where I was at, how long I was going to be there, how I got there, why I was there.
There's no indication of what floor you were on or nothing?
No windows.
Okay.
And that was an analog clock. Couldn't tell whether couldn't tell whether it was AM or PM.
How about announcements? Like usually in a hospital or other institutions, there's announcements and loudspeaker.
There were no announcements. There was no way to know where I was at. My only thing was, I was fearing I was going to die, and no one was going to know where I was at or how I got killed or what happened to me. And that's pretty much what they made it look like. And we're here now hoping that people realize what has been going on and what's continuing to go on. And if we don't put an end to it by addressing it and trying to overcome it, it's going to continue to go on because I see no reason for it to stop. They have a tremendous, the police have a tremendous ability in terms of the credibility that they wield. Whatever they say, people tend to believe it carte blanche, these doctors, administrators in the hotel. And the cops are actually very, very wealthy. They have millions of dollars to spend, but they only can spend it on an attorney.
Oh, you mean the police department itself? Yes.
Each police officer. Their unions pay for their defense, and their boss is a municipality. So when you go up against when they attack you, you have to sue them. Their lawyers get $400 an hour, and each cop is get representation by these people. It's almost impossible for you to get legal redress because they outspend you. They just have the ability, the money to spend on an attorney, coupled with the credibility of the badge. It's almost insurmountable.
That's probably why they were so angry at OJ. He probably had enough money to kind of counterbalance their money. I put my little 2 cents in here every once in a while, you can see. What I wanted to ask you is that now, the next day, you said about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock? What happened then?
I spoke to a security guard. I told him what happened. He said that the cops told him what happened too. He thought they were joking.
Well, the security guard came up to the hallway?
The security guard from the hospital was talking to me while I was strapped to the bed. And he was from the hospital. He had nothing to do with it. He was just a black guy who's working at the hospital.
But he just came up? I mean, like, when you got up that morning, well, you were still tied to the bed, strapped to the bed. He just walked up, or did you call him? What happened?
People just walked up to me. I had no control over anything. Then the morning nurse came and asked me what happened. And they started to figure out that I was in a hospital. They told me, they said if I'd be nice, they'd unlock the restraints and let me go to the restroom. They made me sign myself out, sign some forms and documents, and then they released me. And it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and that was it.
That was it?
That was it. They just let me go, and the police weren't there.
How about the blood? You said there was blood on your clothes. There was
blood on my shirt, and it's a hospital. That didn't strike me as anything unusual, that a person would have blood on them. And the guard that I told my story to immediately after it happened, he thought he believed me because the cops told him the same story, but they told it in a joking vernacular, and he thought they were joking until I told him, oh, that's what they did. They suffocated me, and that's what happened. The story. So I know I hadn't done anything wrong. No one said I did anything wrong. I didn't get a ticket. I never saw a police precinct. Never was arrested.
Okay. Tell me. You got to tell me. What did you think? You're released. You walk out of the hospital. What was going through your mind? What did you say you had to do? Did you say you're just going to forget the matter? You were so happy to be out of there, or were you angry? What did you feel?
I said, people tried to kill me. I said, this is outrageous. I said, this is real. This is not some mistake. Somebody was frightened. This was people trying to kill somebody and get away with it. They suffocated me because it wouldn't leave any marks on my body. And if I wound up dead, there's no marks on your body. You died. They can write you off. If you die without marks on your body, the last thing anyone would ever suspect is that the police had anything to do with it.
Well, why would they, if they were trying to kill you, why didn't they kill you then? They could have. They had the opportunity.
Didn't care. Yeah, well, me living, me dying to them, it's just no difference to them. It's no difference to them. My life means nothing to them. This is 12 years of my life. One would say to my life is ruined, but my mission is to make sure that people out there know all the deaths in police custody aren't even attributed to deaths in police custody. My situation, there are no police records of this incident. Right. The hospital didn't mark down that 6 cops came to the hospital. The hospital records indicate that I died of alcohol poisoning. I drank too much, and I didn't stop breathing. I just had depressed breathing. And when I came out of this, I said, I have to get an attorney. They they got off on the Rodney King case because they said they were trying to handcuff him. And I'm saying, well, they handcuffed me. I didn't resist these people. I didn't do anything to resist them at all.
Okay, this is where the story actually intensifies so far as I'm concerned. It's when something like this happens to you, different variations of this would happen to a person. What can you do? What should you do? Some people, after getting out of a situation like that, they might feel so happy, relieved to be out of that situation that they might go and try to forget it, put it behind them. Others might be angry and try to find other ways to express this. Another thing I want to mention, to be fair to police officers and other people that we look to guard us, to protect us, being human too, they have procedures they have to follow. Many policemen are shot and they put their lives in danger for us also. What I personally, and I'm quite sure so many other people do not, we want to address, there are some people who should not be policemen. There are some people who do not have the makeup to endure all that policemen have to endure and still be able to do their job in a fair way, in a way that's not abusive to the people they're supposed to protect. Now, if something does happen, the country that we live in guarantees that we should have some recourse, some way to check, and some checks and balance to see whether or not an abuse has taken place, a crime's taken place, and some justice can be meted out. So tell us what procedures you followed after that.
Well, right after that, I figured, my luck is so bad that this happened to me. This is outrageous that I went back to the casino. And I had my coupon for my quarters, which I never got, which is where I was going to get, was on my quarters. So I went back to the casino and got my quarters. And I was dragging my leg, I was stuttering because my tongue was swollen up, I was covered with blood, I was missing a sleeve, I was dragging a foot. No one stopped me, no one said anything to me. And I walked up to the casino and I got my quarters and I went and played the slot machines. Because that's what I was there to do. That's what I went and I did. Right in this casino where they kicked me out. Then after that, I went and I got the bus back, talking to myself, going, I thought I was nuts. And at this point in time, I still hadn't known about being in the ambulance. I didn't know about necessarily all that had happened that I'm going to tell you in a moment. And I went back and I got up at 42nd Street and I went to a friend's house immediately who lives in Penn Station South, the late, great, famous Serge Gerstein, who was a production manager for Marcel Marceau and Samuel Beckett, among other noted authors and playwrights. And his wife, Phyllis, and their son, Peter, who I went to school with, and they saw me with my tongue swollen and my shirt missing and all disheveled as I was. And, they calmed me down and, they believed me because they saw the physical remains, what little there was of this incident. And immediately I knew that I was going to have to find an attorney, and hopefully an attorney would help me address this legally, and of course, fill out various complaints.
Right.
Which, ultimately, I called an attorney, and the attorney said, bring him. He asked me for $2,000 as a retainer and the medical records, which wasn't that difficult. So the Gersteins, who, God bless them, thank them very much, they gave me $2,000 because we didn't have $2,000. And they saw that this was real, this really happened. They knew that I wasn't joking. And I called an attorney in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I got the medical records. And when I went to the attorney with the medical records and the retainer, this is shortly after this whole incident happened, he took one look at the medical records and almost laughed at me. He almost laughed at me because the story that I tell, the cops were there, they jumped on me in the bed. It was about 12:30, 12:40. The nurse took the blood. That's 12:30 to 12:40. That's the story that I tell from the beginning.
Right.
The hospital records say that the blood was drawn at 6:30 in the morning. Don't know where this came from or how it got to be there. Aside from, and also the records don't indicate the cops were even in the hospital. So the medical records are made up of two parts, subjective and objective. The subjective part is where the doctor looks at you and makes assumptions about you based on what he sees.
What he sees, right.
All right, and the objective portion is the toxicology report. That's supposed to be just a blind test, and time and blood alcohol. Doesn't matter who you are, and that should come out. And I'm telling you, it happened at 12:30, 12:40. The records say 6 a.m. So apparently, one of us is wrong.
Correct. Right.
And since these are medical records and this is a hospital, and I'm a black man, the credibility fell up to them. And it was shocking. It was just unbelievable. And at that point in time, I was thinking, well, maybe I am crazy. Because how could these records be so off?
Or maybe the clock that you were looking at.
I didn't know if it was 12 a.m. or p.m., but I knew that it was 12:30, 12:40.
It's a
it wasn't
possibility
6:30
that could have
a.m.
been wrong, or?
It was a possibility that clock could have been wrong, all right? So soon after that, I went and I talked to the doctor whose name is on the medical records.
Right.
The name is Dr. Sabatini V. His middle initials put at the end. I thought it was Dr. Louis Sabatini V. It seems minuscule until you try to subpoena somebody with the wrong name. They can bob and weave, which is what they did for years, because I said Louis Sabatini V. His name was Louis V. Sabatini. So when I was subpoena them, they would just say we don't know who he is. Well, he doesn't work here. And they didn't try to correct it, because that would help me talk to him. But I talked to him first without a subpoena. I just walked up to the doctor shortly after this happened, about March of '93. By that time, I had already filed the lawsuit on my own, because the lawyers...
Against whom?
Against Atlantic City, the police department, the hospital, and Caesars. Everyone that came in contact with that night. Caesars had it dismissed because my case didn't state enough that they did to hold them accountable.
Right.
But it was my first case. I had no, you can make the accusations broad to encompass a lot of people and a lot of things. I didn't know that. I only was able to write about what I saw and knew, which was very limited at that time. So they were able to escape. But the main focus was the police. They're the ones that attacked me. And I went to the hospital after this happened, and I talked to the doctor. And the doctor said, I remember you. And the doctor said that they took the blood at 12:30, 12:40. So now the doctor said that, and that's the way I remembered it. Now, the clock could have been wrong, but I'm thinking now more the records are wrong. And I asked the doctor to call my attorney so that he would know that the records are wrong and it wasn't I. And he refused. He said, I'm not going to say anything else about this unless I'm subpoenaed. And that's what he said, and pretty much that's what he did. It took me almost 2 years, again, to get him subpoenaed. And this is ultimately how I know that this case was never investigated by any of the criminal authorities, regardless of what they say.
Who did you ask to investigate this?
I filed complaints with the Internal Affairs Division of the ACPD. I filed a complaint with the Mays County prosecutor, which encompasses Atlantic City. That's like the district attorney. I filed complaints with the Department of Law and Safety of New Jersey, like the Attorney General of the state. They don't actually conduct investigations. They wrote me a letter pointing that out. And I filed complaints with the Federal Bureau of Investigation at 26 Federal Plaza. At that point in time, the agent was a Hispanic agent, and he told me quite frankly, and to tell me that, you know, don't count on the FBI to give redress in this matter, because your case, as far as they're concerned, the FBI, other than himself, doesn't rise to a level of investigation. You're not in a coma, you're not dead. You know, look on the bright side. People are dying and in a coma and they're trying to investigate these cases. And I took that, I thought, you know, well, great. You know, I'm not going to be able to sit back and think someone else is going to handle this for me. I better do as much as I can do and let them do what they're going to do, and hopefully I can have something to help them when they've done. So I went on, and the people, they shuffled papers for a while. It all boiled down to the county prosecutor of Atlantic County, of Mays County. It all boiled down to him. All the investigations boiled down to his office. And his office wrote me a letter in '94 saying that that they dismissed my case administratively because I told them that it happened in '93. It happened in '92. So they dismissed the case supposedly because I lied. Now,
wait, it did happen in '92?
It happened in '92.
Oh, because I think you did say '93 earlier.
It happened in '92. I spoke to the doctor in '93. The case, my civil case was filed in '92. The medical records had 92 on them. The hotel records had 92 on it. Everything had 92 on it. And I even spoke to their office before the date. It happened September 19th, 1992. I spoke to their office before September 19th in '93. So it was a pickled herring. The fact that it never happened in '93. I never said it happened in '93. And for them to say that it was just they were never going to investigate it, this is their false objection why they're not investigating it. But
let me ask you.
Certainly.
Okay. When did you first come to the realization that, Okay, fine. Either nothing's going to happen or something will happen. When did you come to that point? I mean, you did a lot of work yourself. You asked a lot of other people. You filed complaints to do work. When did you come to the point of realizing that this case is really not going anywhere?
Oh, it was never going anywhere unless I did something, because these people.
I mean, even after you started. I mean, right now.
Oh, the case was always going somewhere. My civil case was always going somewhere. The criminal case, I had no control over that. I still don't. I'm hoping that I can get some help from the federal authorities, Senator Clinton, Senator Schumer. I was in the process of getting help from D'Amato and Moynihan, but D'Amato was voted out so that Clinton could get another vote to avoid impeachment, and Moynihan retired so that Clinton could get the New York Senate seat, and here I am back at square one. So this is going to take a definite concerted effort to bring the people to task who never investigated this in the first place. Although they say they did,
okay.
the